Assalamu alaikum. This is Mohammad Fahim bin Amin. In today's video, I'm going to talk about something different because I have no plan of creating any kind of tutorial related video today. In this video, but in this video, I'm going to talk about something different, which I think you should probably aware of. All right. Now, as you can already tell that today's video is going to be about open source, but no, I'm not going to talk about the benefit or importance of the open source or how can you contribute for open source or something like that. I'm not going to talk about that in this video anyway, but I'm going to talk about something different regarding open source, but in a negative way. But I don't recommend you to take it as a negative thing to open source because we know that everything has two parts, positive side and the negative side, and those actually depends on various aspects, and those are kind of relative, and that varies person to person. All right. Now, before going to bed yesterday night, I found this article, and this article caught my attention real good, and I couldn't stop myself until I completed each part of this article. So, yeah, first of all, let me clarify you something that I was not sure about whether I'm going to make this kind of video earlier, but after reading the entire article, I thought, yeah, maybe this is the time. Well, so open source. When we think about open source, the thing we mostly think about is GitHub, right? I know there are various platforms for open source. For example, GitLab is also a popular platform. SourceForge.net. Uh, but obviously, whenever we think about open source, the first thing that came to our mind, it's always GitHub, right? And if you don't know, GitHub is currently owned by Microsoft, the sole company that is running GitHub Copilot and many more things. That's not the issue right now. So, open source, yeah, this is a very good thing. Here you can get to work with a big project. You can contribute to any kind of big project that you might have not dreamed of even before, right? And you can obviously learn a new thing or two. Your contribution might get very much exposure, and if you get that much exposure from your GitHub contribution, then you'd most probably get a ton of job request, job opportunity, then collaboration request or something like that. I get that. I have got it too. Now, if I talk about my open source contribution to GitHub, I'm not that much experienced as I can say right now, but yeah, I have contributed a lot for the last couple of years. And uh, if I want to show you my GitHub profile, let me show you that. So as you can see, this is my current GitHub profile, and I don't tell myself that I'm an expert GitHub fellow or something like that, but as you can see that I have contributed a lot over the years. You see it right here, right? So basically, I should have at least some knowledge about talking this kind of thing, I suppose. So over the past years, I have experienced a lot of good things, and I have also experienced a lot of bad things and so on. In fact, I have received my first job offer by GitHub. All right. And it was maybe 4 years ago when I just started my journey on GitHub. And after working on, let's say, 1 month or 2 months, I got a job offer from a reputed company, and they said me, "Hey, Fahim, we have received your contribution request by the pull request, and we think that you are a good match for our current position in which we are looking for a suitable candidate, and we are reaching out to you to check whether you are available to work on our project," or something like that, blah blah blah. So I was very excited, and yeah, but I didn't apply there or didn't think about applying there because in that time I was a newbie in open source, and most importantly, I have just started out my education at my university. So I was not quite ready for any kind of job that now, but you can see where that goes, right? And over the past couple of years, I have received several job offers, and they came to me from my GitHub account. They said me that, hey Fahim, we have checked your contribution to that project that looked very promising to us, so we are reaching out to you to see whether you are interested to work in our company or something like that. I had received, if I'm not mistaken, then I have received a minimum of 30 plus job offers through this GitHub account. All right, so you can say that this is a plus point. Obviously this is, but that is not the case for everyone else. Maybe I was lucky. Maybe I did something that got me that much exposure, so the recruiters reached out to me. All right, this might be the thing. And yeah, if I want to talk about some of my contributions, then obviously I have contributed to a lot of well-known reputed projects as well. Although I started my journey as a small contributor, let's say I used to correct a grammatical error, typo, or adding is a template, issue template, contribution guideline, or something like that. But later I tried my best to work on bigger issues, though I don't think that I have worked that much uh, bigger platform or something like that yet. But hopefully I would try my best. So that's not the point. It's not the point to brag about my achievement in open source in this video. So let me talk about something different. So let me simply head over to the article, and here you can see, don't worry, I would make sure to provide the link of this article in the video description, and I would recommend you to check this out as well. So here the user, or you can say the author, Artem Sapagin, please forgive me if my pronunciation is wrong. I'm not a native speaker of English, whatever. So he specified some reasons behind this, obviously, like entitlement and toxicity of users. That is common. From my experience of the last couple of years, I can vouch for it that it is common. For the past couple of years, I have worked with many different contributors on GitHub, and the toxicity is a common issue in almost, you can say, most of them. Not all of them, but in most of them. That is true. For example, there was a time, let's say I wanted to fix an issue. So I raised my voice in their issue like, hey, I think I can work on this issue, but please can you tell me how to resolve this thing? And the owner of the repository says to me, hi Fahim, thanks for your interest. Yeah, I can suggest you something that would help you in resolving this issue. And he gave me some points. So let's say I worked on this issue, and before submitting that, let's say I have some confusion in mind, and I wrote there, hey, I have worked till now, but this thing is bugging me. Can you check whether it's accurate or not? But the people who don't have any connection in that repository comes and directly use slang. Hey Fahim, don't you have any knowledge how to resolve this issue? So if you don't have any single knowledge of how to resolving this issue, so why the hell do you care about this project? Why the hell you are wasting the time? Why the hell you are blah blah blah? And some people even dared to use slang using parents and so on. Obviously that happened to me, and to tell you the truth, that demotivated me. All right, that strictly demotivated me. And therefore there was some time that I was thinking about, well, I'm doing this all for free, right? I'm not taking anything from them. I'm doing this thing, or I am resolving this issue for free in my free time. Although I was using most of my time in open source, but towards the others, that was considered as my free time, right? So why the hell would I care about if other demotivate me, right? I am working my ass off to resolve that issue, but a people who doesn't have any connection to me says me that I shouldn't do it. And there was even some time where I strictly thought about quitting my contribution to open source because I was getting so much hatred when I was a beginner. All right. I know this is not the case for everyone, but I think almost all of us have faced this issue, at least when we are starting our journey to open source. I still remember there was a time when the owner requested me, I mean, the repository owner and the maintainer requested me to solve that issue in a particular way, and I was doing that thing. But instead of helping me or encouraging me to do that work, one person, I don't know from where he came from, just came here and randomly used slang to demotivate me. And he was telling me, "Hey, Peach, do you have any idea with whom you are working with? You don't have any experience to work on this matter. Blah, blah, blah bullshit." All right. I'm sorry for this slang I am using here, but I think if I don't use them, you can't even understand the level of torture I had faced with this open source thing. And those things strictly forced me to leave the open source world forever. I'm not joking. I'm not even lying. I thought about quitting open source, but some people motivated me. They said to me, "Hey, Fahim, don't worry about that. We are human, right? And obviously, there are two type of humans, good or bad. So bad people will always demotivate you. They won't even encourage you, but they would try to demotivate you. If you let those people do their thing and impact your life, then what good might come from that?" So that motivated me to continue my journey, and here I am right now. So, as the author expressed his point of view about the entitlement and toxicity of users, I agree with him. Obviously, I agree with him, but these are the situations we need to be prepared for, and I think we need to be more open about what should we actually do in open source and what should we don't do, because in open source everything is open. Anyone can communicate, anyone can come to the project issue, pull request, and so on. All right, and I think GitHub should implement any kind of AI related strict tool for filtering the comments, filtering the bad comments, filtering the bad pull request. There are a lot of spammers. I'm going to talk about that later. But I know that this might be pretty complicated because it is GitHub, right? It is not some kind of, how you can say, uh, YouTube comment or Facebook comment where AI can simply randomly check out some typical phrases or typical words, whether they are included in that specific comment box, and they are filtering that out. It's not like that, because in pull request, in issues in GitHub, we care about the code, right? We care about the code itself. I know this is typical, or you can say this is tough, but in the present world, nothing is impossible. And if anything is impossible, we, the computer engineers, we, the software developers, are here to help, right? So that's what we should do. And then comes low quality of contributions. I'm giving it a big thumbs up because this is also true. Open source was not that much popular earlier, but in recent years it is gaining so much popularity day by day, and so therefore people from all around the world are coming here to start their contributing journey, to show their skills to others. But we are getting a lot of low quality contributions along the way. We get a lot of grammatical change, which is essential, by the way, which is a really essential and good thing. But there is a thing called quality matters over quantity, right? And that thing is also strictly true for any kind of open source project. And for the past couple of months or so, I have also checked a lot of contributions which actually doesn't make any sense at all. Let me give you an example. I have seen some contributions in the documentation file. Actually, we get them a lot because if you want to work with documentation, you actually don't need to be an expert in any kind of programming language as well. All right. So let me talk about this. I was in a project and there was a readme file. Obviously every project needs a readme file, and the readme file has two spaces, two new lines before each paragraph except the first one. And at one night I received 5 pull requests. Those are very awkward because those 5 pull requests are made by the same user, or you can say the same person. In the first pull request, he gave 3 extra new line between each paragraph. In the second pull request, he gave 4 new lines, 4 new extra line in each paragraph, and so on and so forth. So actually, his 5 pull requests are nothing but garbage, a complete garbage. He simply tried to show that he is contributing to this project, and he's simply adding more new lines the readme file, which actually doesn't make sense. So why the hell the user thinks that he is making a valuable contribution there? Because he wants to get a green box in his contribution graph on GitHub, right? So that's also a thing. Keep in mind that this contribution graph doesn't mean anything if your contribution is not as valuable as you think it is, right? So it doesn't mean anything at all if your contribution isn't valuable. Now, I have seen a lot of people encouraging people to do more contribution on open source, and that is good. But I think they are misleading the youth by saying that, hey, if you have a green box on your contribution graph, then you are good to go. That's not a thing. That's not the thing at all. Keep in mind that adding only green box in your contribution graph doesn't indicate any good thing about you. Other than that, you are doing something, because you know that in our contribution graph we can show our activities from our private repository as well, and in that matter we actually don't know whether you are really contributing to others open source project, or you are simply adding a new line one after another in your private repository, right? So that's not the thing. You shouldn't do it. Nobody should do it. And I have uh, even got introduced with some of the people around the world, of course, that they have created AI or some workflows or some random thing which actually adds new commit, adds new line, or you can say adds a new letter each day in their private repository, which represents as green checkbox in the contribution graph. So I have checked their account and I have seen that they all have a green box in their contribution graph, and all of them says specifically 10 contributions on that day. So suppose you are getting a GitHub profile, you see all of the contribution graphs are full by green box. You think that, hey, this user might be professional in their work. But under the hood, what he actually does, he doesn't have any knowledge at all right now. He simply adds 10 specific line in his private repository and he shows that as his contribution to open source. Now you tell me, do you think that we should consider that as a valid open source contribution? No, of course not. That doesn't make any sense, right? So what we are getting at, a lot of people are misleading the community by saying, hey, if you have a green checkbox, not checkbox, green box on your contribution graph on GitHub, then you are solid and good to go. That's not the case at all. So we shouldn't do that. Nobody should do that. All right. And yeah, obviously you should also think about this graph because it represents a lot of things, whether you are active on issue, code review, commit, and pull request or not. But I don't think that adding more checkbox on your contribution graph actually makes any sense. I have checked a lot of GitHub profile from many good developers, and they don't actually have this type of green box in all days in their contribution graph. But we know for sure that they are really working on some good open source project. So Their contributions are more valuable than yours if you are simply adding some random line in your private GitHub repository or spamming other repositories, like as I have told you earlier, adding some random bullshit pull request or issues by just getting your green box in contribution graph. That doesn't make any sense at all. If you are doing this, then I am telling you, you are doing it all wrong. You should not do that. Now let's come to the next part. He talked about the lack of community. It is true. It is actually true. Now, about the open source project, let's say GitHub, how we consider a project is good. We check for their stars and forks, right? For example, if we see that a project has a lot of star and forks, we consider that that might be an active project because that has a lot of star and forks, right? But that is not the case for always. Hear me out. If a person is a popular figure, popular, you can say celebrity type of figure, or has a good YouTube channel, and let's say a person is very popular on YouTube, he has a lot of subscriber and he made a project in YouTube, and definitely he's going to add the link of this GitHub repository in the videos description, right? I also do the same. So the people who are going to watch his videos are definitely going to come to his GitHub account, right? He would obviously follow him or her, and he would also check his project and start the repository and fork the repository as well. So in that way, the person is gaining more stars and forks over the couple of moments, right? So that specific project, that specific repository might get a lot of stars and forks than actually that deserves it. It might happen. I'm not saying that it's always the case, but I have seen a lot of YouTubers doing some small projects and some small thing and provide their repository in the YouTube description, share them on Twitter, LinkedIn, and that project gets more star and fork, which is not a bad thing, of course, but that actually doesn't mean that this project is the absolute best, right? So if you are also someone who takes a project status by checking their stars and forks, you should keep in mind that those might not be the specific parameter for judging a GitHub repository, because a GitHub repository may have a lot of stars and forks, but those are might not be worth for the project as well. Moreover, I have seen on Reddit, most probably, if I'm not mistaken, that you can even buy star and forks for your GitHub repository, and you can even buy your follower. How's that sound? That sounds odd, but it's happening. So we can't judge a GitHub project by only checking for their stars and forks. We can't do that. Because if we do that, we cannot figure out whether a project is actually good or bad, right? So we shouldn't do that anymore. We can check their commit status and check their history, whether that project is getting updated regularly or not, the quality of the project, the contributors, and so on and so forth. By that, we can specifically think about whether the project is actually worth it for your time or not. And lack of community, obviously, there are a lot of good projects, but those are mainly running by a sole project owner or one or two maintainers. They don't have any good community. So they are not getting enough reach and enough view and enough support from the contributors. So those are also dying. It is also happening. And the author has also talked about here. Lack of compensation, it is also true. The most of the open source projects you are finding on GitHub, the project owners are doing it for free in their free time. So we can't judge them. Hey, you have this issue in your project. Why the hell you are not solving this issue? You have this thing. You have this bug in your project. Why the hell you are not working on it? I have submitted a pull request 2 days ago. Why the hell it's not approved? I have submitted, or you can say I have created an issue in your GitHub repository 2 minutes ago. Why the hell you are not responding? You can't say that. Because the owners, the maintainers, the maintainers responsible for that specific project are doing their thing in their spare time, in their free time. They are not obliged for you. You are not paying them. Nobody is paying them. It might be the case. So you should have patience. Nobody has patience nowadays. It shouldn't be like this. And about the GitHub sponsor, if I'm gonna talk about this might sound silly, but in the most cases, the GitHub sponsors others $5, $10, $15 for some couple of months or even 1 month. But recently GitHub has donated them one time $50, if I'm not mistaken. So you see that those actually doesn't make sense for your valuable time. So if we are talking about the open source project, the project owners and maintainers are obviously doing those for free most of the time. So you shouldn't judge them for that. Like, hey, I have created an issue. You are obliged to respond to that right now. You can't do that. They also have life, right? As you do for yourself, I suppose. Lack of tooling, obviously. I don't think that I need to talk about this anymore. You can pretty much guess what he's about to talk. And yeah, actually, there are a lot of things when considering GitHub and open source project. You would get a lot of experience from there, and you might get a lot of job opportunity, in particular from GitHub, by validating your specific contribution, of course. And you'd also receive a lot of hatred, a lot of bad thing in open source. But I don't think that is enough to demotivate you from your open source journey. So I would recommend you to be more serious about about the specific validation for your open source contribution, because you see, quality matters over quantity. You should always keep that in mind, because let's say you have a ton of project, because none of them are good, so that won't make any sense. But let's say you have very few projects, but each of them is very good, very solid, then you do really have a chance in there. So think about the quality of your contribution. If you are starting your journey as an open source contributor right now, so you should learn a lot of things along with your contribution to open source. I know if you are new to this sector, then obviously you are going to start your journey by solving a small issues, let's say typo and something. But along the way, you should learn a lot of things, how to deal with them, how to read an open source project, and how to check whether you can contribute to them or not. And believe me, there are a lot of open source projects in the GitHub, but actually all of them are not open source. We can't mix up two things altogether. One is open source project and the project whose code is open for us. Those are not the same thing, because even if you get free code base on GitHub, those might not be open source project. They might not be interested to receive any contribution from you either. They have simply showcased their project there to get more reach, get more views, get more stars, get more folks. Or even it might be the case that they are simply hosting their code base there for free of charge, nothing else. Those are not the open source project. So anything we see on GitHub are not open source. Yeah, the code is public. We can check the code, we can fork them, we can use them in our project, but all of them are not open source. They won't accept you as a contributor. This might also be the case, but that shouldn't demotivate you, right? So I think I have talked too much about in this video. I don't know how much I have been able to deliver the message to you all, but I guess this might clear some idea and misconception about GitHub. And don't forget, quality over quantity. So that's it today. See you in another video. Till then, take care. Bye.